All right, guys, last night I worked quite a bit off camera, but I wanted to jump in and give you guys an update on what's happening with the bed. So we got it taped off, and I also drew some Sharpie lines on here in case my tape peeled off or something, or I wanted to remove the tape for whatever reason. I got it marked out where I'm going to bob it. So I actually wanted to verify if I cut along here, is that going to cut off my tailgate mounts? I don't think it is, but it's going to get real close to these. So I may tweak that accordingly so that I don't cut off these mounts right here on the bottom side of the bed, because those are necessary for the tailgate hinge, and I'd prefer not to do that. But you can see I cut some squares through here for the actual shock towers to come up on the VS410. I thought about doing a cantilever suspension. I thought about doing a leaf spring suspension, but ultimately, let's just cut some holes in the bed, let the shock towers through, and just kind of keep it as a VS410. There's also a little chassis brace support that comes for the RC4 drive for the RC4 drive chassis, and so I went ahead and cut that out. So that was a choice I decided to make, which also I had to do to make it sit all the way down. When it was still on there, it actually was coming in contact with the cross member in the chassis over here, and it wasn't allowing the bed to sit all the way down. So how did I cut these holes in the middle of the bed? What I ended up doing was actually taking a piece of Scotch tape and laid it across here, and then I just kind of eyeballed left to right and put some Sharpie dots where I wanted, and then also front to back I set the bed on the side of the truck and looked directly across the side and got an idea for kind of where it needed to be. And then I also measured the towers, how wide they were, how long they were, and then I made sure that my measurements were going to be bigger than that. And then ultimately what I did is I drilled 4 holes. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in the corners, and then I just took my Dremel and cut between the holes, and then I came back in with the sanding wheel and cleaned up in between them. Now it's not perfect, but it's my first time modifying a body like this, and once the shock towers are in there, they're actually pretty dang close. It's actually a good fit, and then on top of that, it's harder to like really focus on how out of square they are, but overall, pretty happy with how that turned out. So I've got the Shrink RC body mounts on the side of these sliders here, and I've just got the 2 front screws installed so the body can actually pivot just a little bit up and down, because I need to rock the cab forward and up, be able to get the bed to slide in the back here where I need it to. Let's see if we can do it. There we go. And then allow that to come back down. So now our shock towers are in the bed. Now the one thing I'm not real excited about is just that the body post still exists for this, where like these towers coming up through the bed, they just don't need to be there. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I could use these as an anchor point for some type of like spare tire carrier, maybe a bed cage, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'll mount a box in here. That's the other option, is I could always put something over this to hide it. So I could also put a shell on this truck and hide it. So, I mean, we have some options on what we want to do. But for now, it's functional. It sits down on the chassis all the way down where I want it. And the wheelbase is all lined up just perfect, because Shrink RC did their homework and made sure they made a good product. So looking good already. I will probably have to adjust my ride height a little bit and actually kind of lock out these shocks to where they sit at maximum down travel, because these tires are a little bit bigger than they probably should be. I may end up coming in here and trimming some of that fender out. I don't want to go crazy, and I definitely don't want to go like real wild where, you know, we may have to go for these tires. So it's possible we may go to a smaller tire, which might look overall a little bit more scale for this truck anyway. We'll definitely keep the wheels though. Outside of that, looking good. I'm excited. I have not bobbed a bed before, and I'm going to make a video on it. So there's your guys' update for tonight. I'm gonna get some hood out and the grill, and just kind of get some mock-up going on, just kind of get an idea for how things are gonna line up. But I definitely need to go get a pole saw. That's one of the reasons I haven't cut it already. I just need to get the actual tool to cut through this, make sure everything's square and straight, and I'm not like hacking it up and getting uneven lines. Looking forward to it. May adjust that rear line here to make sure I don't cut those nubs off. And for now, there's your guys' update. Hope you're enjoying the series. All right, guys, we did something dangerous today. Went out and purchased a pole saw. Now, I don't know if this is the right blade or not. Says for fine woodworking, which I think is applicable to, you know, ABS plastics. I think what we're gonna do is just enjoy the sweet, sweet bliss of ignorance, and I think we're gonna try it out. Yeah, I think it will cut through it. Question is, how cleanly is it going to do it? Now, this is a flexible blade, so I do need to be careful, like, to make sure I'm cutting where I want, but also, you know, we'll just kind of see what happens here. So it's designed to cut on the pole stroke. So let's get her lined up, and, you know, let's start in a very obvious place, I guess. And so typically when I use a hacksaw or something, I like to get myself just a little like notch started, something for the blade to sit and follow. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. I'm not pushing really at all, just kind of the weight of the blade itself, just kind of sitting on it and pulling it back, and it will start to cut a groove down into it, and we're just going to follow our tape line on down and, you know, kind of go from there. It does not like to drag back and forth. But it's definitely cutting. Now it's got a nice notch to where it falls in its little home right there, and I can kind of start to add just a touch of pressure. So far though, it's looking like a very nice clean cut, and I'm liking what it's doing. Another thing I want to note is that I'm fully prepared to take my time. I'm in no rush here, and, you know, if this takes me multiple sessions to get through, that's just fine. I just don't want to get excited and get going too quickly. I want to make sure I follow my lines correctly and make sure we do it correct. Started to get her cut through the top of the bed cap, and working our way down, we're cutting that Sharpie line right out. So it's ending up being about the width of that Sharpie line. So this will end up just a touch shorter than this piece and this piece where it's taped off. We're also going to lose that Sharpie line, which is just fine. Well, okay guys, front half of the bed is here and the rear of the bed is here. So we've made our first cut. We've cut the bed in half. Now we need to cut a section out and bob it. How did it go? It went okay. The finished product, the cut is actually curved. I get about to just past the middle of the bed, and then it actually starts curving towards the front of the truck. And then I also had an ugly cut right here. It started really getting sideways on me, so I literally like stopped and changed the way I was cutting, and then came through this way. So that way I didn't have like this big S curve. So now I basically just got this step right here in the bed. So I'm not stoked on that, but going into this, I'm here to learn. It doesn't need to be perfect, and that's kind of my mindset, is like, it doesn't need to be perfect. Yeah, these little bed holes aren't perfectly square. This didn't end up perfectly straight. It's all good, man. That's just proof that I did it. And I say that about painting as well. A lot of people are afraid to make mistakes in painting. I have plenty of mistakes in my paint jobs. It's just proof that I did it. And you know what? Most of the time they go away pretty quickly anyway, so it's all good. But so far, we cut it in half. As far as the pull saw is concerned, it seems like I did a lot of work for how much it was actually cutting. I'm sure that there is a better blade out there to cut through this stuff. There's only one way to learn, man. For me, it's hands-on, get shit done. Let's see how it goes. And we'll use our mistakes to our advantage in the future. So, hope you guys are enjoying the content. Don't be afraid to try this, man. I've never done this before. I don't have anybody here who's done it before. I really didn't do that much research on how to do it. I've messaged a few friends online just to get some general ideas, and outside of that, it's just kind of cutting through plastic. At the end of the day, you're cutting and gluing plastic. It's not that big of a deal. So, and even if it goes horribly wrong, we could get another one. Not that big of a deal. All right, let's get you guys an update here in a minute. Well, all right, guys, we've got 3 pieces of a bed now. So I've got just the tail light section here. Then we've got the, I guess this is Bob himself, right? So this is Bob. This is a bobbed bed. Yeah, so it turned out decent. I did, in fact, put a curve in that cut. So yay me. Now I got to Dremel sand this and try and
try and flatten it out. I may go bigger than a Dremel. I'm thinking like a sanding sponge possibly, and you know, sit there for 30 minutes probably, getting that thing flattened out. This cut I think actually turned out pretty good. I think if there's any issues here, it's actually more vertically on this one, so we'll find out. I'm also curious how much like filler I can kind of get with the glue, and then kind of the gaps we can fill with it. Kind of go from there. But at this point, I mean, I did end up cutting out that further forward tab. That is for the drop down bracket to put a chrome back bumper on this, and that bumper would just get ripped off almost immediately. So I'm probably going to do an aftermarket one that goes into the chassis, and something that will actually hold up to a hit. So did not matter that those got cut in half, and in fact it actually helped me, like, you know, make sure my cut was straight. As long as I went right through those little nubs, then I was doing good. You can even see the threads coming, the threaded holes coming down here. Just about cut those things right down the middle on both sides. So pretty happy with how that turned out. So let's get a look at it. So if I just hold it up and kind of get things squared up, yeah. So it looks like I have a high spot right from here to here. And if I can just get that knocked down a bit, I think the whole thing will sit in there a little more flush and look a little bit better. So overall though, pretty dang happy with this. Went pretty good. I mean, I sat there, I didn't end up changing out the saw, I just stuck with the pull saw the whole time, and whoever knows if this is the right blade or not. Ultimately, it did end up pulling out the plastic and got things done, but it definitely wasn't cutting quickly. So, looking good, happy with how this is turning out. Now comes the actual challenging part of getting it glued up in place exactly how you want it, and guess we'll hope for the best, but I don't have the glue here on hand, so I gotta go pick some up.
All right, what is going on, guys? We have made some awesome progress today. And last night I put together the rear bobbed portion of the bed. Obviously we eliminated the bobbed, we got rid of bob, and now it's just the taillight assembly onto the bed itself. So ended up gluing it together, put together that sweet little jig that I'd kind of finagled together, just two, you know, woodworking clamps, and ended up gluing it upside down. That way the bed caps and the top of the bed rails would kind of hold everything level, and then I could also get my clamp where I needed it to get the support piece along the center here. Now there is still some glue drying on this back little corner panel right here. I reinforced it. It ended up not getting a secure joint, so that was flexing this morning. So I put some more glue in there and it's drying right now. Otherwise I'd get it out and show you. But we did it. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the end result. I've already hit it with a bit of sanding paper and trying to get rid of some of the excess glue. This glue is kind of interesting. It's kind of gooey, even though it's cured. So like, it's not hard to pick off the excess residue, but obviously depending on exactly where it is, sometimes it's a little tricky to get down in here. So I did sand the joints here. It's not perfect right now, and it looks a little worse than it feels. If I close my eyes and rub my finger along here, it's smoother than it looks because it's got like that kind of shiny edge on the leading edge up there. But overall, for a total noob who didn't really take or watch enough videos to learn how to do this, I think it turned out pretty decent. So yeah, I'm excited for that. There's the bobbed bed, and then we're gonna keep messing with it. I did get some sanding done on the molding of the cab, so like cleaned up where the little supports were along the front of the windshield, the top of the windshield, the bottom of the door, and then the top A-pillar. Also sanded off the back side of the hood here. So just getting little odds and ends figured out, and then also doing a little bit of sanding here on the back of the bed. And I think we're gonna keep going from there. I did pick up some paint yesterday, and I did a test spray on the bobbed portion of the bed. So it looks like The sage green is kind of what we're going for. So I'm liking it. It's pretty subtle. It's not a whole lot to look at, but it looks like it would be appropriate on an old 80s pickup. So I'm liking where that's going. We may come up with a funny like theme, like maybe a Forest Service truck. I don't know. Maybe we'll just do a plain Jane sage green truck. Or I'm really debating if I want to try and patina this thing or not. And I think I would just do a wash where you just brush it on and it kind of looks a little more grungy, not necessarily rust. I don't know if I'm there as a painter yet. Obviously only one way to learn, same as this, but I think for this truck, since it's my first one, I think I just want to do a wash if I were to try either one. It seems like that's pretty simple and gives a pretty cool result. But looking forward to messing with that as we go along. Now that we've got the bed done, now we can really start hammering down on prep work for paint, getting this thing actually painted, and then assembling the rest of the body. I think really from this point forward, it should be a pretty straightforward process, nothing real crazy, but having fun with it for sure. I am gonna get some narrower hubs ordered up for these because the track width on this is just way too wide for what I want the look to be. These are the Vanquish Incision line, and the Incision has different hubs than the Vanquish wheels do. So these are not SLW. I don't know why, but there you go. Well, there is 90% finished on the bobbed bed portion of this. Like I said, I got some more details to work out on this, but really happy with how this has come along so far, especially as a total beginner here. If you guys are considering doing this and you're a little hesitant to do it, you got to go for it. Just send it, take your time, do what you can to make it as good as you possibly can. But ultimately, if you make a mistake, it's all right. It's a little plastic toy truck, not a big deal. But yeah, you guys should definitely try it. I had a lot of fun doing this actually. I had a lot more fun than I actually thought I would. And I recommend that if you want to, go ahead and try it. But we're gonna end this video out. I just kind of wanted to do a video on how to bob the bed. The series is going to continue on where we work on the rest of the truck. But if you guys want to see this specifically, which I think a few people would probably want to, hopefully there was some good info in there, and hopefully you could stumble through it like I did. I greatly appreciate your guys' time. Please hit the affiliate links down below. It's how you can support me here on the channel. I do go full-time here on YouTube and would greatly appreciate the support. We'll see you in the next one. Keep the rubber side down.